Hafide Toru Hamzu, thank you for your participation in today's virtual public meeting. This virtual public meeting is convened by the Guam Trademark Commission and hosted by the Committee on Heritage and the Arts, Parks, Guam Products, Hagåtña Revitalization, Self-Determination, and Regional Affairs. For the record, in accordance with the open government law, public hearing notices were given to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets, with the first notice distributed on Friday, December 18th, 2020, and the second notice distributed on Saturday, December 26th, 2020. Notices have also correspondingly been published on the Post, and the public hearing notice is posted on the legislative website at www.guamlegislature.org. Today is Monday, December 28th, 2020, and the time is 10:26. This virtual Guam Trademark Commission meeting is now called to order. We have just two members present, and this is one of the things we were talking about as we were getting ready for this meeting, is there is another cultural meeting or two going on this morning at the same time. And so some of our other members are attending there. So for those that were able to attend, Seduas Ma'asi for your virtual attendance on this morning's meeting. We will each introduce ourselves for the benefit of the viewing public. And to begin, I'm going to go around in the way that I see everybody on screen. I know we all see each other in different order, but if you could introduce yourself by turning on your microphone and introducing yourself by name and the agency or entity that you represent, so that the viewing public has a clear understanding of who the commissioners present today are and who they represent. Seduas Ma'asi. And the other nice thing is the commission members that are here today, they've been here from the beginning, and so they have these 2 years under their belt. And as they move into this commission next year, I'm very pleased that they'll take all of that foundation that they have developed and bring it with them to move this commission forward for next term. So if we can start with Mr. Baza.
Afide, Senator, good morning. Matthew Baza from the Guam Economic Development Authority.
Excellent. And Christine?
My name is Chris Lizama. I'm representing the management for the Guam Visitors Bureau.
Excellent. And they've been two very important members. So I'm very pleased that they're here today. So that represents that those are attending. And as you can see, with the commission, we have a wide amount of expertise and experience, and we are so appreciative of their attendance. Each of the members has expertise that adds to the commission significantly. The agenda for today's morning virtual Guam Trademark Commission meeting is downloadable in a link contained within the notice emailed to all of the commissioners. I hope each participating commissioner is able to download and view today's agenda. Today's agenda covers the work completed to date by the subcommittees. Additionally, we will discuss current challenges faced by each subcommittee so that we can continue to figure out how to overcome them. This helps provide that solid foundation necessary so that each subcommittee is able to function in moving the Guam Trademark Commission's work forward. A web link has also been provided in the email on the PDF agenda attachment. The web link directs each commissioner to my office's virtual drive. A copy of the agenda is downloadable there. Also, copies of prior Guam Trademark Commission meeting transcripts and resources are available so that each subcommittee is able to reference and find information for each of their work. The meeting files are compiled in a committee report format and accessible at iLegislatura Guahan's website. Hopefully they've also been emailed, and if not, we can make sure that everybody gets a copy before the end of the term. So let me start with some general housekeeping rules necessary for our conduct on this virtual meeting. The conduct of this virtual public meeting shall be as follows. All participants must abide by rules of conduct and quality assurance standards, including broadcasting from a quiet room with little to no interruptions. The use of virtual backgrounds is not permitted. Broadcasting from a room with adequate lighting, specifically to ensure that a participant's face is not backlit, but visible at all times when speaking. Please ensure that you are unmuted and that you are speaking clearly into your microphone. The chair will recognize each commission member that has confirmed their participation in this morning's meeting. No personal inferences shall be made on the character of any individual at this meeting. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in the removal from the virtual public meeting by the host. So today's meeting is the Commission's 12th meeting. Our last monthly meeting was held on Thursday, October 1st, 2020. This is the final Commission meeting under my oversight of the Guam Trademark Commission and will continue upon the legislature's selection of a new oversight chair that will preside over the Guam Trademark Commission as it continues to do its work. At the Commission's last meeting, the Commission received status reports from the subcommittees that were able to meet. Also discussed was the sharing of resources and accommodations that may be made available to corresponding subcommittees of this Commission. For new and old business item 2, we will receive reports from each subcommittee on their work and accomplishments. So let's start with the first subcommittee on the agenda, but we'll get through it real quick because there's just one subcommittee that was able to make it here today. So normally we start with the Guam Trademark Subcommittee of Tangible and Intangible Cultural Art Forms Subcommittee. And to that, we had talked a little bit about some of the work that each of the subcommittee is doing. And, you know, for all of us, I know it's been a challenge to meet during COVID. We're all doing additional responsibilities on top of our regular responsibilities. And then just some of the physical and logistical difficulties in meeting as well. So some of what we'll be talking about when we get to the subcommittee that is here is how much of this is going to maybe be details and how much of it is going to be framework that are going to be part of our recommendations for policy development. And what this subcommittee might do is I think that they have a real contribution in discussing the tangible and intangible aspects for the Chamorro culture and in general. And so they can provide that detail. I think that will go a long way. But I think also important would be for them to recommend how that a framework so that can continue to be updated and looked at. It's not just something that's set in stone and doesn't change forever. Since this is all informational and participation is important across all boundaries, did either of you want to comment on that? On seeing the benefit of some of what they can define for us, especially pertaining to Chamorro culture, but seeing that another part of what they might recommend is just a framework that sets it up so that work can continue even after the commission's work is done. Christine, did you have any thoughts? Or Matt? Christine?
Matt was going to open up for our section first, so I'll defer to him.
Okay.
Yeah, I do think, Senator, that is important. When our subcommittee met, and we had our back and forth email conversations or telephone conversations, a lot of what we discussed was the government of Guam already has a lot of regulatory systems in place that may be suited to some tweaking, modifying, and editing to fulfill the needs of the trademark program and the cultural trademark program that we're trying to implement. But the most important thing that's needed right now is those definitions and a clear guidance on what the government is looking to protect, right? Because I think I think out of all the meetings we've had as a commission, both at the legislature and virtually, have been the government is making it a priority through this commission that there are certain aspects of culture, both tangible and intangible, that includes art, language, symbols, all sorts of things that we want to protect in some form or fashion to the greatest extent possible. And I know, Dr. Sauder and everyone's admitted there's always going to be limitations to what we can do, but we want to do as much as we can. And once we get that sort of idea of what we want to protect, what intangible means and how we can best protect it, what kind of art we want to protect and how we want to protect the artist, then I think we can take already existing regulatory mechanics and regulatory programs and sort of edit it, mold it to fit it, and then find the correct entity to actually conduct the oversight. And that's one of the things we talked about too in our subcommittee is we're not sure if one of the current members of the commission would be best to conduct the oversight. Will we need to establish a new body to conduct the oversight? And those are some of the questions we had. But it is important that, at least in the beginning, if we're looking at the 3 subcommittees we formed, that, subcommittee A and B, those have a very important role that I do think requires some sort of maybe more regular attention by experts that can really draw down and figure out what is needed.
Those are each excellent points, and I wrote each one of them down because I think they are a real important for all of us to be considering, and especially when when the commission gets together and has its first meeting next term, that's a real good place to pick up the ball and hopefully go running forward with it. And I think that the work that we have done has gotten us to those realizations. And so it's really important to articulate them as you have done very succinctly and very on point, I think, and will really help give that direction. So I agree. And, tangible and intangible cultural art forms, on one hand, it may sound so simple to define, but on the other, it does become very complex. And for a lot of people, I've worked in these realms a little bit, it can become very confusing a lot of times. Like, we know that music is produced, it's on a CD, you can write down the notes, you can write down the words to a song or a chant, and then people can become very confused. It's like, well, is it tangible because I can hold it on a CD and things like that, or is it intangible? And so really sorting that out, and maybe there are, let's say music as an example, maybe there are going to be tangible and intangible parts to it that end up being something that the commission wants to protect, and that we want to protect in law. So yeah, it does become very complicated, as you pointed out. And I do think that we're going to do ourselves a lot of service if we look around at our existing laws and rules and regulations to see what can work to do what this commission is set up to do. We've been around for a decent amount of time, and there are laws and rules and regulations all over the place. And I was at another meeting for our sea resources those resources that are along our coastline and in our ocean waters. And one of the things they did is they created this chart for all of the laws that touch on that. And sometimes it can become quite a lot to wade through. And so maybe that's something that with the AG's office, maybe that's something they can do for us, is create a chart like that where we see all the laws that touch upon the rules and regulations that are important for this committee to be thinking about. So that's maybe one of the things that we would ask them to do in the next term to help navigate all that. Yes, Christine?
I also wanted to add to that, and in our subcommittee discussions, in addition to all these laws and regulations that exist that can be and should be tweaked once we finalize what intangible and tangible means to the people of Guam. But we also have to consider the enforcement aspect of it. And then, I mean, we're not even there yet, but when we're talking about all these laws and regulations, how is that going to be enforced? One of our committee members who is not here today, but we're talking about revenue and taxation. The one person there who had to deal with all of this for many, many years has just recently retired. So, you know, there's a new person on board to pick up the helm there. We need to be able to capture that historical, you know, wealth of information that this one person has and find a way to keep him in our group so that we can use all that information to help when it comes time to defining how do we enforce what it is we're trying to protect.
That's a very good point. And that's one of the realities, maybe it's true in every government, where there's so much information and expertise that institutional knowledge that isn't necessarily documented in such a way that it's easily accessible, right? Or it has that wealth of perspective. And so that's a very good point. Maybe one of the things that would be looked at is membership. So there's the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and I think when this law was written, it was written very thoughtfully. The members, the expertise that are involved, I think they did an outstanding job in identifying that. But when an agency is represented, you know, is there that ability to have somebody who has retired represent them? Or, you know, how can we get that expertise to continue being part of this? Because there's so much value that they have to contribute. So I think that's really important. And membership is one of the things that I wanted to talk about at different points. You know, are there others that we want to include for next time that we would recommend possibly to the next term or the next legislative oversight, that if they want to expand this, and maybe it can just be done at the subcommittee level, you know, inviting them, because we have talked about that from the beginning, that we're very open to having the public and other experts be part of this as well. So thank you each for those contributions. I think that's we covered some really good ground there. And then the other part, the other subcommittee that we had developed is aspects of culture subcommittee. And I think with what Matt was saying, that's also another area that fits into all the things that you were mentioning, kind of needing that guidance as to what it is we're trying to protect. And this is where, you know, I was working on another project and I went through our listings of masters. And we have a really wide range of masters that have been recognized. And I know that they're updating some of how they're working with their masters right now as well. And so one of the things that we had talked about was getting that list of masters, and it is really eye-opening. We have Talidzeru, like net makers, and I don't remember if the actual fishing was part of their master recognition, but there's just really a wide range. And so maybe next term, what you guys can talk about is the list is important, but coming up maybe with categories is going to be more helpful for you, for the work that you guys need to do, is to know those main categories that all of these masters are going to fit in. Because if we have a master Telitzeru, but we haven't recognized a master Gigao maker yet, it doesn't mean that they don't belong there, but maybe if they can come up with these categories of masters of, and I don't know what the right term would be, but masters of capturing ocean resources or something. There will be a better way to say it and think it. But that can give you guys the framework of what you need to know without having to know if it's a Talitzero, if it's somebody who digs clams out of the sand versus whether it's somebody who makes fish traps in the ocean. So I think understanding the masters is a good place, but then asking this aspects of culture subcommittee to then come up with these main categories to give you guys some guidance as to, in general, what are we talking about with these, whatever they come up with, 10 or 12 or 20, main categories. Do you think that that would be helpful in helping you guys move forward to have categories like that to understand sort of the general landscape? Maybe starting with Matt like we did last time, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think so, because the different categories may require different requirements, right? So like if an artist versus someone that's music, like graphic art versus music versus dance versus cooking may all have different, they may all have a general sort of rubric of how we look at them, but then each one may have some sort of specific requirement that may require a specific person or specific body to look at. So that might be beneficial. And I think it would help, you go from like the general to the specific, right? So at least if we have categories are a little bit more general in scope, so it might be easier for the commission to come up with categories versus listing down from the get-go every single individual type of tangible and intangible cultural art form that we want to protect. So it probably would help in getting the ball rolling quicker on that aspect. And then it would also help guide us in the regulatory and enforcement aspect, because you would enforce someone who fishes in terms of a cultural art form differently than enforcing a painter, I would think, just off the top of my head with no expertise on that at all at this point. But yeah, I do think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, and I think these are some of the lessons that we've learned along the way is it is for a multitude of reasons very difficult to just sit down and list every type of cultural art tradition or something that's going to be recognized for protection along the way. We continue to think about these differently. Like maybe back in the day, we didn't think of culinary arts as art forms, but they're totally considered an art form today. And maybe we didn't think of blacksmithing as an art form per se all along, but we now recognize it as an art form. And the same with making those fish traps and fish weirs, so part of that is the way that we as a society have changed in growing to recognize what we might have called traditions or lifeways as part of the art forms that we do want to protect and we do want to make sure is transmitted and things like that. And I think you stated it very well, is once we have the general, then all of the specific items that fit within those general categories can always be filled in. And I think that would be the continuing work of whatever the final body is that's put together to run this trademark. There will always, I imagine there will always be some new, art form that either developed or is now being recognized that wasn't recognized in the past. Christine, did you have any thoughts here?
No, I just wanted to reiterate that, and I defer to the experts because truly, as Matt said, there are so many different varieties, and I don't have a comment to make toward it because I don't have that expertise. But I do agree that the committee or the group that's going to come together to define and establish those categories for us would help tremendously to move us forward, I think, into the next
Yeah,
term.
I think that would give you really the information that you need as your subcommittee to move forward. Like if they inundated you with, I don't know, let's say 749 different art expressions, that might be really complex for you to deal with. But if they gave you 12 or 20 categories, whatever the number actually ended up being, that would give you enough to understand what you're working with. So, okay, well, I think we really have learned a lot over the last couple of years. And I think we all did such a good job. Each of you, from Gita to GVB, you did such a great job providing your expertise and us helping the rest of us understand your programs. And that allowed us to learn a lot. Instead of starting from scratch, we already can see that there are Guam brands and Guam logos and Guam seal programs that are very successful, well thought out, have years of running successfully and being tweaked along the way. That again, it gives us that framework that both of you have talked about, that we can connect this program to or learn from and see what kind of structure needs to be in this trademark program. So excellent. Okay, and then the next one is your guys's subcommittee, and it's the one that captures so many things. So I really appreciate that you guys have tackled as much as you have, because it's a pretty big list that you guys have that you're looking at. So this is for the trademark, image, branding, advertisement, marketing, and sales, including the socioeconomic aspects of trademark policy and enforcement subcommittee. And I really appreciate all the thoughtfulness that went into creating the subcommittee. And again, I think it really speaks to all of the experience and expertise that you guys bring, that you understand all of these aspects need to be looked at. Did you want to start with Matt again to have you guys report from your subcommittee?
Sure. So yeah, so we have a lot of different individual pieces to the subcommittee. We had one very productive subcommittee meeting we were able to schedule one even with all the COVID restrictions and all that kind of stuff. And we talked about a lot of different things there. One of the things that that we really touched upon is we want the program to be as comprehensive and thorough as possible, but also as easy as possible for the artist or the art organization or the business, whoever it ends up being, to come in and comply with the law and do what they need to do to get whatever trademark, documents or seal they need. Because if the program is as easy as possible for people to comply with, then enforcement becomes easier because people will regularly renew their certificate or whatever they need to do to stay compliant. If the program is a little bit too cumbersome or confusing, then we run into the problem of needing a lot more enforcement because people are just unable to comply with the program. So that was one of the things we talked about. And then, which of course is the first thing to talk about, is once the definitions are made, the categories selected, how do we regulate and enforce the program? Then we moved into sort of branding, advertisement, marketing. And one of the things we talked about is if and when this program gets off the ground, um, maybe looking also at some form of incentive for people who would want to go through this system. Our general understanding would be for someone to get a certification that whatever art they're doing let's use the Talaza, for example. You could have a Talaza net mass produced somewhere, or someone can say, I'm going to go through this. I'm become a master Talaza maker. And my product, at the end of the day, my art is going to be, it's going to cost more because I'm doing it all by hand by myself versus a mass produced item over there. So how do we incentivize not just the person making it? How do we incentivize people to buy it or to be a customer? How do we incentivize businesses to use those types of products and services? So we started to touch on all of those types of things as well, because that is how the program will grow. We talked about the need for financial resources at that point. The more members you have, the more oversight you're going to need to do, the more money you're going to need to spend. So we talked about a lot of different things on the cursory level. So it was a very fruitful meeting. Chris prepared a very good meeting review, so she has that in her files. So when the new commission meets up, we have that. I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm not good at taking notes. So we have all of that, and we have a lot of questions were asked and a lot of potential answers were given, but we just need to move forward and further explore it. So it was good.
It sounds like it was very, very productive. And I really, again, what you were saying with this not being your field of expertise in certain things like identifying the difference in Chamorro culture and our local artists between intangible and tangible, but I can certainly see your guys' expertise shining through, because in thinking of a program being easy, I might think of it for certain ways, like, oh, okay, the easier it is, the more people will have sign up. But I can see what you're saying about it's going to make enforcement be easier, and it's going to make people want to be more compliant. And so that makes total sense. I really see the value in the way that you guys laid that out. And the same with the branding. It's absolutely true, is we want to create that incentive. I mean, what's the point of having a program if nobody wants to be part of it or nobody feels like they're benefiting from it? And we want them to benefit from it. Not only that they feel that their intellectual copyright is in place, or their copyright of the more visible aspects of their art are protected. But as you were saying, that there will be a price differential, and we have to help people understand that when you're buying from a master, it's different than buying mass produced. That of course is going to be cheaper, and there will be maybe some instances where there's a market for that, or it makes sense to go in that direction. But we really do want to have as much of the community as possible here and globally but also not just as individuals, but as businesses, be incentivized to see the value in why they would want to purchase that and why they want to help promote buying from those that are authentic and validated by a program such as this. So fantastic thinking these issues through, absolutely. Christine, do you have more to add to this?
I just wanted to add some of the discussions that we had enjoyed sharing had to deal too with in our line of work dealing with the tourists. We pray they come back soon, but you know, one of the things that was brought up was the fact that the made in Guam definition. You know, you'll go to a large department store here and you'll see a lot of made in Guam products that say made in Guam, but you flip it over and it's like really made in China or made in a different location. And then, you know, I think Matt kind of touched on it where what's the difference? You know, what's the incentive for, you know, or how can a unique artist on Guam compete with something, you know, something that's mass produced? But I also shared some comments that were that I had gleaned, and it was that if you really watch the tourists when they go shopping, they go look for the made on Guam thing, but really they will turn around, and if they see something that says that it was made in their homeland or, you know, the neighboring homeland and really not made in Guam, just the words, they won't buy it. So, you know, it's just, those are just kind of things we need to impress to our artists, you know, that it is important. When people come to tour, they really want to see something that really did come from us. There was, I think, a period of time, Senator, when they were trying to bring the tourists out into the villages. You know, that in and of itself is culture, you know, and I think those are all things that we hope that the committee that's supposed to come up with these definitions help mold them, help how to say, for the lack of a better word, you know, put it down in writing and then give us something to work, the framework that you're talking about, give us something to work with and move forward toward this end.
Yeah, you know, you made really excellent points, Christine, and I really appreciate that. And, you know, you triggered a couple of things. I think I've mentioned it before, but it's one of those things that still needs more follow through. And especially as we're rebuilding ourselves, this is a really opportune time to continue connecting all these dots. I mean, it would have worked anyway, but now maybe it's even more crucial than ever. And so I had met a time or two with GVB about having a program such as this, but even the Guam Seal program is what I was starting with, to have it be part of that one shop app, or maybe I'm misremembering the name of the app that you guys have for GVB, right? But in that shopping app, to maybe have a button for Guam Seal products or these artists that are part of this trade program, because there are certain tourists, I'm one of them. I mean, I buy some mass-produced stuff. You just can't not do that anymore, no matter where you are. It's just so prevalent. But it becomes harder and harder for artists, a tourist to find authentic items. And that's been a real struggle for me. So I think that's one of the beauties of Chamorro Village, and the Sagan Couture in Chamorro, and our festivals, that these are places where you can find those local artists and find real, you know, authentically, locally made by local artists items. But I think also if there was some presence in that, an app like that, or even its own app, if it has to be its own app, that would give the visitors and even us in the local community a roadmap to where we can find certain artists and certain authentic things. So that might be something to continue to think about with you guys in the marketing. and so forth. And maybe you've already even had discussions along those lines. Yeah, you're nodding your head, so maybe you have, Christy?
Actually, that app keeps getting better and better each year, and yeah, I think we should continue that conversation, when the recovery efforts come in, because I think that will, just kind of fall into place nicely.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a branding expert by any stretch of the imagination, or in the world of marketing, but what you were saying about the villages, I could really see a place for some of that in an app like that. And some of what little I've heard, because again, it's not my field of expertise, but that people are going to be traveling and looking even more so for experiences. And so if there's a way to tie in these cultural art experiences also with the items, people can then see and value. Like if they learned how to throw a taladza, they may not purchase a full-on taladza, but they might purchase something that a taladza net maker, if they so wanted to, could make for like a child version or a mini version that could be kept as a memento, or even thrown at home in their living room in Japan. Like, I don't know what the possibilities are, but once you've learned something or had some hands-on experience or watched other people do it, the incentive to purchase something, a photograph, a video, or some sort of model or actual art piece, there might be that continued connection, and it can get us to get people out to these experiences and have maybe some development of more experiences. I was going to say experiential, but experiences while they're out there. So yeah, all kinds of ways that this can continue to grow, I think, and fit in with your guys' category, tackling both the socioeconomic aspects of growing this incentive, making it be an industry that makes money for our local community and our entrepreneurs, and hopefully continues to provide value for our visitors, but also I'm always an advocate also that when we develop all these things, that we do it for our school children and for us, that it makes our daily lives richer as well. Like one of the best experiences I have is throwing a taladza. It's so cool. I've only done it a handful of times in my life, but I look forward to the next time. It's such a cool thing to learn how to do. And you feel so connected in a deep way, not in a deep way, but you feel so connected to a deep tradition is what I meant to say. Are there other aspects of this from your subcommittee that you guys want to talk about? I know you said it was a challenge getting some of this work done, or feeling like you reached a certain point of what you could do without the A and B providing you more information. Are there some other challenges, or do you want to expound on that a bit as a challenge?
I think that there's a lot of ideas that we're tossing around in our subcommittee, and a lot of it will probably get more well defined when we have a better idea of what the other subcommittees are able to produce. So I think that moving forward, we're really going to be interested to see how the commission tackles those other aspects, and then we would probably be much better suited to giving more definitive sort of next steps and things like that. Because a lot of what we talked about in our meetings have always been, well, this will be a great thing to do once we have a little bit more understanding. So that's sort of where we are right now. I think we'll continue. Chris and I, we communicate regularly, so we'll continue to just toss ideas around, we'll reach out to the other subcommittee agencies, and we'll go from there, and then we will for sure continue moving forward on this into the new year. It's diversifying the economy, so this is economic diversification. If we can find a way to get more people to be their own boss through this program, someone may want to just do art full time. And if we end up devising a program where they can become self-employed, get a certification, start producing, quality products, quality art that people and organizations will want to buy, then we're also really taking a good step towards small business development, entrepreneurship, all those good things. So we're excited to see, where it goes.
Excellent. And yes, these are exactly the kind of things that we need to be thinking about as we're moving forward, because we do need that continued economic diversification and just the growth of the possibilities that you were mentioning for self-employment. And, people might think of art as a very small business thing, like it's just one person, or maybe it's a cooperative. But I was having these crucial conversations over the last couple of months, partly just to kind of see what's going on in our island and in our region. And there's so many awesome opportunities. And some of what was being discussed by one of our local artists, he's a member in this commission a lot of times, Joey Certeza, representing CAHA. And he was talking about how he's taking these art forms and building them from being an individual artist to this larger, now he's looking at actually being a company. And so we do have that potential. And I've seen it with other artists here as well, or I don't know that he would consider himself an artist, but with these local materials that would need this kind of intellectual property kind of protection for the books that he does, cookbooks, different kinds of books, and then even just getting into like aprons and the culinary arts to go with the recipe books, this sort of thing. So they can really grow into these companies, like you were saying, Matt, that provide diversification, but also this sustainability. And one of the things, not that we need to get into this, but just to understand what some of our entrepreneurs or artpreneurs might be doing, is within our entire region, we have all of these resources of just a variety of things that are organic. They go into this realm of sustainable development, but a lot of artists work in these kind of realms. And if we continue to connect with the resources that are out there, like there are just these possibilities between our local artists and local artists or companies that are growing up in these other regions. So they very much would be the type that would benefit from the type of work that you guys will continue to be doing, because once they get that underway, they're going to want it to be protected. And I've heard about some of these companies that are developing in that direction right now. They're going through different proof of concepts, and it's very exciting to see and to hear about, but they'll absolutely need the protection that you guys are getting put into place. And so some of what we had talked about was, with your different presentations, I learned so much about what it takes to have a brand or a logo from GVB. And I think that some of that existing framework that you guys talked about that will be able to benefit this program is whether it just ties in with maybe something like the GVB logo in a certain way. But certainly you guys have done the work that helps us understand there needs to be, when you have a logo in place, there needs to be guidelines, there needs to be protection even of that logo to help deal with enforcement but also consistency and other things. And that, you'll continue to figure out whether you want to actually develop the logo in the commission, or you want to give them all those guidelines that Christine and Matt have learned about what the trademark entity in the end will need to do to set up those guidelines, to set up those protections, to set up those enforcements. So I'm looking forward to that continued work, because again, the thoughtfulness of having you guys on this commission, it will really pay off in the end. Yeah. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about from your subcommittee? Another entity where this might end up sitting in the end is it's been sitting with, like the Guam product seal has been sitting with GITA. Certain things have been sitting with GVB, but certain things have also been sitting with DRT, where they've done some kind of like the light version of this program. And then we had also talked about, CAHA has possibilities, but that can definitely be something that you guys continue to talk about as you meet next term, is where will it make the most sense for this commission, if it continues as a commission, or however the law sets up this final entity, where might it make the most sense to sit? Each of you guys have something to offer as an entity that oversees this. And I hope in the end there will be continued participation in one way or the other by all of you all, because each of your agencies has something really important to continue adding to enforcement and development and all of those things that are going to be part of the actual running of this program. So anything from you guys as a subcommittee to finish that up that you wanted to bring up before we get to our any new business we want to talk about?
Just very quickly, Senator, to your point on that, when you were talking about which entity should end up housing this committee, when we had our subcommittee meeting, that's actually a very interesting point that you brought up, because of the fact that because Matt comes from GITA and Mike and Monica came from DRT and I come from GVB side, we all kind of knew a little bit of everything we were discussing, but not a lot. Like Mike, he was all about the application and the licensing and all that stuff. And Matt has all these programs and the, what do you call your business development and investment type program. And then I talked about the branding guidelines and everything that we presented at the last in the January meeting, I think it was. But to tie it all in together, we all were like, okay, so, well, who's supposed to take the lead on this? And then that's when we came up with the idea that, what? We all have ideas. We all are chomping at the bit to improve on this and share our knowledge, mutual knowledge to make it work. But until we get that first part in, as Matt mentioned earlier, and as Mike reiterated during our meetings, until we get those definitions, until we know what product it is that the government wants us to protect, we're step 2. We have to wait for the step 1 folks to finish up. And that's just what I wanted to say on that.
Yes, and so all of these things that you guys have been so thoughtful about, they're just things that take some time to really think through. And so even though COVID stopped us from meeting our July goal of getting to a place where we could come up with maybe the policy recommendations, I can see that we've learned so much along the way, and we're on the verge of it, right? We just need to get those major kind of chunks into place, and then we'll have enough where the commission will be able to set up whatever that entity is that is going to run this program and do the final rules and regulations, do the final, continual evolution of this. And like I said, I do hope that there's a way that wherever it sits, even if it sits in DRT, that it using it as an example, that it finds a way to keep everybody involved, because you each bring something really important to the program. And I can really see that. At the beginning, I would have maybe said, oh, well, we need a program that it consists of 10 people who have an art background to run it as a trademark program. But I can really see that it needs to be this composition where it has the different expertise or the benefits that this would have for the final program itself. So it'll be interesting to see next term how this last leg of the work that you guys are doing is going to shape up. Because I agree with you. I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be such a benefit to our community. And it's going to be just such an important link to the process that, as Frank Rabone and others had mentioned, they really need this. They see that companies, maybe unintentionally, are starting to use things that should be protected, where we have the photographs of dancers without asking the dancers or the dance company if it's all right to use them to, as packaging or as advertisement and things like this. And so we really need to do this. And we know that internationally, there's a whole world out there that wants to use Pacific Island culture and artist work that's coming from our region without necessarily asking for the permissions or going through the protocols. And so these are really valuable things that we will be helping protect. So that gets us through your section, and now we can move on to any other policy recommendations that we have. And so I had some questions here. So we've talked about where it should sit, and I agree, it needs further thought. What I thought in the very beginning of all of this has changed over time, and it's because of this commission that's helped me broaden my perspective. So I really appreciate that. And membership, I think that the way that the law was written was really, really thoughtful in putting this commission together. Is there any membership for this particular commission that you guys have as a recommendation for next term to pass on to the next commission? I mean, we're not deciding anything absolutely, so, but just thoughts on this?
I think that the current makeup of the commission, the agencies that are, to be represented, I think it's already a very good cross-section of the government. And I think that what can happen is as each, agency is going to continue to be involved in the commission, if one or more of them feel like, oh, I think that we should get this agency or this nonprofit, or even if a business person wants to get involved and help us out, then we could do that. But I think the core is already well represented in what the legislature passed in the initial bill. So I don't know if we necessarily need to add anyone officially on the list. But, of course, through all of our different networks, we all know people that or organizations that may be able to provide some assistance moving forward.
I agree. And Senator, you also said, the existing entities can turn around and if, since it is open, they can establish subcommittees because they can glean the expertise of these other factions for their specific purpose and or share them around if need be. But for the most part, I think the core, as you said, was very well thought of.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you. We've had such a good cross section, as you guys are saying, of our different government agencies, and I really hope that it helps people understand the expertise that really sits in our agencies, because we do have a lot to be proud of, I think, in the expertise that we have. And part of what I've really appreciated is getting to become more familiar with each of you as individuals, but also the expertise that you have cultivated over the years and what you're doing for all of us as a community within your own fields, but then within commissions or task force like this. So I agree that we have that open membership where we can call people in to work to either provide a presentation to the commission as a whole. We could ask them to do that, or just ask them to be part of a subcommittee where a lot of the legwork gets done. So I agree. Some of what I might recommend going forward, I think, for some of the logistics stuff is like what I'm doing right now is I'm taking down notes so that we'll develop a more action item style of minutes to go with this final report. And I think that would be good going forward, that we've done it. I think that there are benefits to doing this public hearing style, because the community, I know that there are people that listen in and they've talked to me about this. Maybe you guys have had people come up to you as well. And so I think it's been great to have this, these meetings and all that we discuss really open and out there for people to view in and tune in on. And so we've done the reports in that public hearing style, but I think going forward, I'd recommend having minutes as to action items and discussion items so that it's a quick perusal, because from month to month, or sometimes there have been months we haven't been able to meet because of a natural disaster or COVID or whatever. And it can, I think it can really work for us to see the work of the commission month by month, but also to get us connected to what we did last month so we can use it as a jumping off point. So for me, I would recommend that we, in addition to doing our public hearing report, which is a requirement, but that we have it be maybe in that minutes style, or have minutes in addition to this. Let's see. I'm hoping that you guys will be able to call from the A commission to hear more about those models that are out there, so that we're learning more from. And now that we know how to do Zoom, that would have been a really awesome thing, is to actually connect with people in New Zealand, right? And hear from their perspective. So that might be something really cool, is to continue to explore these models, but maybe to connect to hear from people directly. And that way you guys could actually ask questions, like what their challenges have been. I know that there have been challenges and things like that. So maybe to connect with them directly would be really cool. I know that we've talked about with the final program that there will need to be something organic to it, like there are going to need to be organic components. We don't know all of what those are yet, but that's been clear. And then one of the things that we've talked about is being able to potentially, even the commission itself, but maybe the final entity is we can work with international and Pacific and regional groups through NGOs and MPOs and stuff. So I just want to reiterate that, to have it on our radar, to remind us that because we're within the US, we have to work within the State Department, which is fine, but it does mean that we become one small consideration amongst all the 360 million people that make up the US. But if we work through an NGO or an MPO, we can maybe join the Secretariat of the Pacific. We can join these different cultural organizations. We can join in with the United Nations, and it does a lot of cultural type of work like this in the Pacific. We can connect with them as a commission, but also as a final entity, or just even as a community. So I just want to bring that to the forefront to kind of kick that ball so it's at the beginning of the discussions next year. And things that those groups can do is possibly workshops for training or other things. But we can also start doing some of those things, like if there are things that want to be protected and there's a clear-cut path, even while this commission is still doing its work or the final entity is still getting things put into place, whether they participate in our program or not, they can already start being listed onto the UN's intangible cultural heritage or tangible cultural heritage listings, which gives them certain protections, because the world then recognizes that these things belong to the Chamorro people, or the government of Guam, however it's set up. Are there other things that you guys want to mention, just as recommendations in general, or specifically for the next commission, when the commission continues, not next commission, but to have as that starting point going forward?
I don't have any additional recommendations. I just want to take the moment just to thank you for being the chairperson of the commission. It's you've been very organized. The minutes, the agenda, everything was very well put together. To you and to your staff. So I just want to thank you for that. I think moving forward, the next chairperson of the commission can take sort of the model that we've already set up and the administrative legwork you've already done to really move it forward, especially now that we've kind of come into the normal with COVID and virtual meetings and doing all those things. I just want to say I think we're at a good point, and you and your staff and your leadership really helped move us to this point. So I think a lot of what we can do, we can just build on what you've already done and what the members have already contributed.
Very good.
I'd like to take this time to thank you as well, Senator. You and your staff have been very, very accommodating to this group, and your leadership has really helped us get to where we're at so far. Unfortunately, natural disasters do happen, and it's beyond our control. So unfortunately, there's nothing else we can say about that. But you've summed it up very nicely, I think, and I think this this final report can be moved forward to the next body that picks this up, and I'm sure I'll be seeing that around. So thank you very much.
In Hagamas, thank you guys each so much. Like I said, you know, I've really appreciated getting to know you guys individually, but I just have appreciated so much understanding what you guys do within your agencies and how you can contribute to commissions like this. So it's meant so much to me. And you bring up really good points. I think we've talked about it, but just to make it real clear, that this is a synodi composition where there will be certain elements of the composition that will be renewed. So the speaker will, for the next term, that speaker will appoint their representative, and then there will be certain committees that will have representation here, like whoever takes over the cultural entities will likely be the one that takes over this. They usually clump it together, and this will probably be in that cluster. And so those couple of memberships will change, but your membership should stay the same, so that Matt and Christine and the others, if they haven't retired like Mike did, hopefully we can keep them involved in certain ways. But I really like that you guys will continue to drive this, because you take all that we've learned over the last 2 years, and the commission itself will be able to largely hit the ground running and wrap things up, you know, within a certain amount of time next year or next term. So I'm really looking forward to that. And let's see. So item 3, I mean, we've kind of done open agenda in a certain way along the way. Is there any other open item discussion that you guys would like to discuss? I think we've covered everything, even though it's just 3 of us, because I think we've each been so engaged all along the way, and have really paid attention to the work of the other subcommittees, and you guys have done such excellent work as a subcommittee yourself that we were able to discuss a lot amongst ourselves. So with that, we haven't had to vote on anything. It's been informational all the way. And so I don't know that we need to do a motion for adjourning. So we'll just go ahead and close out the meeting. A Happy New Year to each of you. I hope you had happy holidays thus far already. And it'll be a quieter New Year. I guess there's no fireworks, right? So yeah. Matt, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, just happy holidays, happy New Year.
Yeah, and Christine, did you want to wish everybody a happy New Year as well?
I pray that 2021 is a great year for our recovery.
Yes, I think we're all ready to kick 2020 to the curb.
Yeah.
You know, there have been certain very, I guess, certain strengths that have come out of this year, but I think we're all pretty much over it, and we're ready for a new year and a new beginning. So yes, very good point. And yeah, happy holidays again. So the Guam Trademark Commission meeting is now adjourned sine die, which means that the work of the commission will continue, but for this term, this is our last meeting. So Duas Ma'asi for your attendance and participation in this virtual Guam Trademark Commission meeting. The time is now 11:39. Have a wonderful day and a good rest of your week. And I shall see you all. Well, we'll all continue to run into each other. So take care. Hasta.